This is On the Sidelines with Box 13.
All right, welcome into another edition of the On the Sidelines podcast. I'm here with my co-host, as always, D-Jack, Dante Jackson. Dante, I think this is episode 10.
Episode
we
10.
made it. They haven't ripped us off the airwaves yet.
The key card's still working. The key card still
We're
works.
still here. We got a packed episode today.
Yes.
We just wrapped up a conversation with Brian Nemhauser, Hawk blogger. I mean, man, if you want to talk draft and you want to learn some things, talk to Brian Nemhauser. We're really excited about this conversation. You're going to learn a bunch, so stick around for that. Obviously, talking all things Seahawks draft. We got top 5 dead or alive coming up. Dante cooked up another top 5 rankings draft themed. Let him cook, as they say. The Mariners are doing pretty well right now. We're going to talk about them towards the end, and then what's trending. Also, we got some draft related stuff. I think you can guess who it's about, if it's about the draft and it's national stuff. But we start with the NFL draft with the Seahawks.
Yes.
And man, what a draft it was, Dante.
I mean, I'm so excited. This draft has me more excited now than in recent years, than I can remember in recent memory. This is a great draft, and you know, when you check the grades from all the pundits and all the experts, I mean, A plus, A minus across the board. Everybody is lauding the Seattle Seahawks draft. Great job, John Schneider.
Yeah, John Schneider absolutely cooked. I mean, so you in the first round you get Grey Zabel, biggest position of need.
Yes.
Top 5 position of need was offensive line, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You get Grey Zabel, who can play any spot on that offensive line. You know, he's probably going to be your penciled in starting left guard.
He better be.
So a lot of expectations for this first round pick on the offensive line. There's going to be some growing pains, but it's going to be exciting to see him grow. A Settlers of Catan fan as well. If you're familiar with that game, I know I am, me and my buddies. So love to see a Catan fan. And a fan of Busch Light, if you heard.
Yes, I heard.
He said
he get 12 hours.
12 hours of those Busch Lights. I hope Grey Zabel had a great time and he didn't wake up with too big of a headache. And then
I love the personality,
yeah,
too.
absolutely.
I must interject, I must say.
Well, I'm going to interject you and give you some credit because the rounds 2 and rounds 3, we talked about 2 names on this podcast and the minimal pre-draft stuff that we did because that's not my cup of tea. D-Jack brought up Nick Eamon-Worry and Jalen Milroe.
Yes.
And lo and behold, the Seahawks get both of them. So I got to give you some props. I don't know. I mean, you told John Schneider to re-sign Ernest Jones, and then boom, next episode he's re-signed. You tell him to pick Nick Eamon-Worry and Jalen Milroe. Are you withholding John Schneider's phone number from me?
I also told him pick an offensive line early.
Yes, you did.
So
3 for 3.
I just think it was a simple draft, and that's what I love about this draft.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't get too cute.
Yep.
You know, and that's been a charge from the Seahawks in the last few years and the last few drafts, is I felt they tried to outsmart the room rather than make the pick that was there right there for them. They traded down. They traded up. They got out of the round. They picked a player from a small school that, you know, that might have produced in college but didn't project to the pros. Finally, they picked the obvious pick. Grey Zabel, great pick. Nick Eamon-Worry, I mean, what can you say? He lit the combine on fire. One of the most explosive athletes ever to test out of there. And then you go and get your quarterback of the future, hopefully in Jalen Milroe. Mm-hmm. And I love all the picks. And what do they have in common? They're all athletic specimens. Yep. I mean, you're talking about athleticism coming out. I mean, that seems like what they pinpointed in the draft, and they got it.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's talk more about Jalen Milroe. We can't get too far into this without talking about their potential quarterback of the future. The reason why I was hearing a lot of stuff about Jalen Milroe as a passer and how there's a lot of, growth to be had there. He had sort of an interception problem in Alabama, an accuracy issue, So I knew I wasn't really a fan of the Seahawks getting him in the first or second round. You get him in round 3, and at the end of round 3, at that, if Jalen Milroe doesn't touch the field, it doesn't matter. There is, I'm not going to say zero risk because it's a little bit of draft capital, but it's the end of the 3rd round pick.
Yes.
I mean, if he doesn't do anything in his NFL career, so what? You didn't mortgage the future to go and get him. And if he does, like people think, and I mean, first of all, at the bare minimum, He's going to be playing in year one in Wildcat packages. I think that's pretty safe to assume. Man, that's going to be fun. I mean, so he can grow as a quarterback behind Sam Darnold while still being productive in year one. Like, say, if you had taken a Shedeur Sanders or a Dylan Gabriel or a Tyler Shuck or a Jackson Dart, who, and you want to get a quarterback, but Sam Darnold's being your starter. They're not going to be able to provide value in year one. Right. Jalen Milroe is, because the best part of his game is his ability as a runner and his ability as an athlete. So putting him in those Wildcat packages, and then guess what? He's not only an elite runner.
Yes.
Think Lamar Jackson, think Jalen Hurts. He can throw the ball. And yeah, he's got to grow, but you still have to be able to respect that. So a 4th and 1, a 3rd and 1, where you need a yard, just run power right, and then there's so many things you can do with that.
Yes.
You fake the power right. You've got a pass run option. Like there are just so many things that you can do with this guy. And then hey, if he figures it out as a passer, as you said, that's your quarterback of the future right there.
Yes, and he has a chip on his shoulder.
Yep.
He's coming in with a chip on his shoulder. And make no mistake, this is a blue chipper. He might not be a refined quarterback, and he's not a finished product just yet, but this is a blue chip athlete who will play that quarterback position, and I think he'll actually be successful earlier than people realize. Now, he will see the field early. I think we should be cautious on that, using him in a running back sort of way.
Yep.
I want him to specifically focus on the quarterback position and become a legitimate pro quarterback, and that would do him justice. The 3rd round seems like it's the sweet spot for a Seahawk quarterback. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, Russell Wilson going 75th overall back in 2012. It's really hard to ignore the comparisons between that offseason and this offseason when it comes to the quarterback. They signed Matt Flynn. I was looking at it. It was only a 3-year, $26 million deal for Matt Flynn.
I mean, that was big money at that time.
Yeah, it was pocket change now. Yes. I mean, that's just under $8 million a year for a quarterback. So they went out and got Matt Flynn. They draft Russell Wilson, 3rd round pick, 75th overall this year. They go out and get Sam Darnold in a team-friendly deal. What was it, 37 and a half, whatever the money, $37.5 million a year compared to just under 8. I just think it's crazy, the growth of the league in just 13 years. They get Sam Darnold, veteran, team-friendly contract, and they go and draft Jalen Milroe, that 3rd round pick, mobile quarterback as well. It's fun. It's fun, man.
And now it is some similarities, but make no mistake, Sam Darnold is a more proven commodity than Matt Flynn was at the time.
He had a couple of games. He had that 4-touchdown game.
He was a backup.
Yeah.
He had some games on the back end of the season that kind of blew him up. Sam Darnold is a legitimate starter in this
full
league,
season,
who has been playing. He's been a starter most of his career. He had a couple of years where he's played the backup role, but for the most part, we know we have in Sam Darnold. But let's go back to Milroe, and the way to describe him is electric. The guy is electric, and I expect him to see the field sooner than later.
Absolutely. The night of the draft, I made my girlfriend watch Jalen Milroe highlights, so that was fun. I had to do some education over there.
Why you do her like that?
She had a great time, I swear. No, but watching the what I want to say.
That's how you do it.
Watching those highlights, man. There are just so many amazing moments that he had in the Crimson Tide. The 4th and 31 with 20 seconds left on the clock against Auburn, completes the pass in the end zone for a touchdown to win the game.
Yes.
Against Georgia, the long bomb up the right sideline to what's their receiver's name? Ryan Williams. And then that crazy juke move, that makes the two dudes run into each other. I mean, that's Jalen Milroe throwing that ball.
He did this in the SEC.
Yeah.
They call that NFL light.
Yeah. He was up 30-0 on Georgia. And, that lead went away. Kalen DeBoer's, game management, whatever they got. But, he put up 30 points on Georgia and then came back. Didn't they ended up winning that game, right?
I'm not sure, but
anyway,
this is a guy
it was
who
quite the performance.
He's had flashes.
Yeah.
He's shown that he's capable. And the throw you talk about, he can throw the ball. Now, with a little coaching, and hopefully we can get him some tutelage, I think this is a great pick for the Seahawks. And like you said, it's high reward, low risk.
Yep.
You get him in the back end of the 3rd round, which is a sweet spot now we call him the sweet spot for the Seahawks quarterback of the future. You get him that late in the draft, a blue chip athlete, who can contribute on the ground with his feet no matter what. Whether he throws a ball today, tomorrow, or never, he will contribute to this team.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, being out there at the draft and hearing his you know, they had a phone interview with him right after he was drafted. I mean, first of all, he said, the quote that stuck out, he said, "There's nothing I can't do on a football field."
Yes.
Which, man, that is what I want from a quarterback. I mean, he is very confident he can do it all. But it wasn't just confidence. He came off as a very mature young man, very humble and very confident. And I feel like it's very hard to balance ego with humbleness and competitiveness. And I just love the way that he came off. He was very well spoken. I think you could count it on one hand the amount of times he's lost in his high school and on football career. In the NFL, you're going to lose some games. That's just how the league works. So you're going to have to learn how to lose. You're going to learn how to bounce back and learn from your mistakes. So, you know, those couple of losses and not winning that natty, that might end up helping him out here with the Seahawks. You know, that's our reaction to the Seahawks. Let's get into some real insight with some of the experts. We talked to Brian Nemhauser, Hawk blogger, earlier today. You're going to like what he has to say about the Seahawks draft. Take a listen. All right, we're back here on the sidelines with a special guest for today's episode, none other than Brian Nemhauser, aka Hawk blogger. Brian, thanks so much for taking the time. I don't know if your voice is still working. I know you've been live streaming all weekend long for the draft. But what were your overall impressions of this draft class? I know you had some high praise for him.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, guys. It I think was it has the potential to be one of the best draft classes in franchise history, and I say that knowing that you can't really judge a draft for a few years. But the thing that really stands out to me about this draft class is that, you know, no matter how you kind of evaluate drafts, I think this one stands out. It has high ceiling, incredible athletes that have amazing potential to be potentially blue chip players. You have high floor. I think the chances that Grey Zabel, Nick Emanwori, you know, Elijah Arroyo, even Jalen Milroe are going to be contributors to your team, I think is very high. And you ended up with just off the charts intangibles too. These are guys that are bringing personality, a little swagger, and, you know, a lot of leadership along and maturity for them. So I just think they nailed value, they nailed talent, they nailed their needs as well. So a really, really positive and fortunate in some ways draft for the Seahawks.
Now, Brian, you said fortunate, and I want to touch on that subject before I ask my first question. Was this the most important draft of John Schneider's career here, being that this was his first the second draft that he participated in without Pete Carroll?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure John Schneider would tell you every draft is his most important draft, you know, the same way coaches will tell you the next game is the most important game. But this was a pivotal one. I think you're absolutely right. And this is a situation where, you know, yes, Pete Carroll moved on last year. John Schneider is, you know, head honcho over there now for football operations. He brings in Mike Macdonald, and it went reasonably well the first year, but this was the year where Mike Macdonald, that coaching staff, and John Schneider could really come together to start to build the vision of what they see as a physical, fast, you know, reliable football team. And so, yeah, I think when I say fortunate, you know, there's a lot of teams that potentially could have drafted Grey Zabel before they would have even gotten there, and this draft could have looked differently. There's no reason to believe that Nick Emanwori was going to be even available in the second round. They literally got their first 4 picks were all players that at one point or another were expected to be drafted in the first round. And that is something that you very, very rarely can say.
Well, you know, last year I feel like we were going through the season and a lot of the talk was this team sort of lacked a consistent identity. It seems like John Schneider and Mike Macdonald took steps towards finding that identity. What do you think about that? And what do you think the identity of this team is turning into?
Yeah, it's a great point. And it did feel last year like they were just, I think Mike Macdonald knew what he wanted the identity to be, but you had a couple factors that made it hard to really get there in his first year. One is just newness, and there's a transition. There's always going to be that period for people to kind of get to know you and you to get to know them. And then two, he got hired pretty late in the cycle after the AFC Championship last year and had to put his coaching staff together. And that was a group that hadn't really worked together, even among themselves. So, it didn't work out on the offensive side. He had to take a leap of faith with Ryan Grubb, and Ryan Grubb's vision of the offense turned out to be quite different than what Mike Macdonald's vision is. And so now he's brought in Clint Kubiak. He's brought in an experienced coaching staff that's worked together. And I think that's a underestimated part of this draft class is almost every player was on offense, and you have a fullback drafted, you have a tight end drafted before a receiver, you have a lot of decisions made, 3 more offensive linemen that really fit what they want to do. And so to your point, I think you're starting to see a lot more precision about what the coaching staff needs in order to actually make their vision come to life. And, then now it's just a matter of them getting those guys and molding it together. This should be a much better situation for them to do that.
Now, Brian, everybody's excited. The 12s are excited about Jalen Milroe, and you were down at the Combine. What was the vibe down there around? What was the buzz around Milroe? And what grade did you have on him? And did you?
Yeah, it's a good question. Like the first time I had eyes on him in person was actually in Mobile, Alabama at the Senior Bowl, and I went there kind of thinking, okay, this might be a guy. If you look at the 4 quarterbacks left in the AFC and NFC championship game last year, you're talking about Jalen Hurts, you're talking about Josh Allen, you're talking about Jaden Daniels, all unbelievable runners. And then you're also talking about Patrick Mahomes, who, when he needs to run, absolutely can do it. So I was like, okay, Jalen Milroe is absolutely an elite runner. Immediately in the NFL, he'd be one of the top 5, maybe even the top 3 runners at the quarterback position. But then he really struggled. He really struggled as a passer at the Senior Bowl. And it wasn't just me. Everybody seemed to come away with that impression. He did better at the Combine, but this is a guy that I was comfortable if the Seahawks drafted him like when they did, around the 3rd round. But if they had made this decision in the 2nd round or in the 1st round, which was possible, I would have been a lot more concerned about the risk they were taking. Now you've got a 3rd round pick, a late 3rd round pick, who can come in, play for you in certain sub packages, be a wildcat quarterback, short yardage, red zone, and can learn behind Sam Darnold as well as Drew Lock. And I think that's just a really, really great situation for him and for the Seahawks.
Well, and the team, struggled in short yardage situations. So what better a player to bring in to help out with that than Jalen Milroe? For those wildcat packages you mentioned, I mean, I am absolutely jacked about the premise of that, because you also have to respect, his ability as a thrower. But in order for those wildcat packages to work, he's got to have a good offensive line to run behind. Let's transition to the offensive line. What do you make of not only Grey Zabel and how he fits in, but how that general room is looking with the dust settled now, free agency and the draft now over? How confident are you in that position group as we head now into the season?
Yeah, obviously that is the group that I don't think there's any fan base that spends more time talking about offensive line than the Seahawks fan base. But, in the ideal world, and this is where their fortunes weren't perfect, they would have been able to add a veteran, reliable starter to that offensive line. They tried to sign Will Fries. He didn't want to have to take the physical, or at least the Vikings didn't make him take the physical. So they lost him, and that was their one guy that they really went after. So now you've got what was already one of the youngest offensive lines in football, and you're adding more young players to it. And so I think you have to be realistic about there's risk associated with doing that. At the same time, Grey Zabel he is a really good player. He has, I think, can fit in a number of ways. And the other thing about that Seahawks offensive line room, I'm getting to talk to those guys last year, all great guys, all like really talented, but they're all tend to be kind of reserved, a little bit quiet. And Grey Zabel, if anything, people have gotten to know him more than they've already gotten to know any of the other Seahawks offensive line, and it's only been a couple of days. So he brings a lot of personality, and the fact that he actually was teammates with Jalen Sundell and is back with him, it's possible that those two might end up anchoring the Seahawks line for a decade to come. And I think that kind of chemistry and that kind of storyline could be really fun to follow.
Brian, you have a favorite pick?
Nicky Manwari was a guy that I absolutely fell in love with at the Combine. Talking to him the day before he worked out, talking to him about having Cam Chancellor's same coach and that his coach had compared the two before, and just the way he carried himself, I was super impressed. And he said he was going to run in the 4.3s, and people literally were like kind of laughing. And I posted that online, and they're like, yeah, sure, the 220 plus pound guy is going to run in the 4.3s. And he ran his first time. It was a 4.41 or something like that. And then he does it again. And it's very rare for the second 40 time to be faster than the first. Sure enough, he posted a 4.38, and it was electric. So watching him do that, jump 43.5 inches, broad jump of over, like, this is one of the most explosive athletes to come out and play in the NFL. He is literally the most explosive safety ever measured. So you put that in the hands of Mike Macdonald. The fact that Mike Macdonald is that excited about him should make everybody really eager. It doesn't mean he's going to be Cam Chancellor or Derwin James or Kyle Hamilton. He's going to be Nicky Manwari. But there's, for the first time in a while, elite athletic ability on that Seahawks side of the ball, and I'm really eager to see what that looks like.
Yeah, it's exciting, and I mean it's a Mike Macdonald defense that is centered around having multiplicity in that defensive backfield. So having a guy with the versatility of Nicky Manwari, very exciting to see what Macdonald can do. I guess my question with Nick, I mean, I was seeing the stuff coming out at the Combine, your posts about how athletic he was and just the measurables, how we're off the charts. What did make him slip down to the second round? Why was he there for the Seahawks to be able to trade up and go and get him?
Yeah, there's a few things that you work against you in that regard. And one is just positional value. Safeties in general are not going to be guys that get taken that high in the draft. Malachi Starks, I think, was the first safety taken, and he was taken, by the Ravens in the late first round. So, there's some limits to how high you'll go. It also happened to be a year where there's a lot of teams hunting for the big nasties, the defensive linemen, the offensive linemen. A lot of those guys were going early, and so that also has an effect. And then, he's not a perfect prospect. So there are some things that, on the football side, he's still working through. One of the things that's really cool about him as a player is he came up as both an offensive player, but then a cornerback, and then grew into his body, to be a safety. His ability to play nickel corner, which is something Mike Macdonald said when we talked to him after the draft, makes him really interesting. You talk about the athletic combination of Reek Woolen, Devin Witherspoon, Nicky Manwari out on that field together, Ernest Jones, who's a fellow South Carolina Gamecock, and like watching those guys all kind of coalesce. We're not even talking about that young, front line, Byron Murphy in his second year. I think this absolutely, the expectation should be this is a top 5 defense in the NFL, along with being one of the youngest defenses in the NFL, which is pretty cool.
Now, Brian, back to the draft. Have you ever witnessed or been part of a draft that fell in place like it seems it fell for the Seahawks? You mentioned that the first 3 to 4 picks could have been first rounders. I've never seen a draft fall in place. They made a few moves to maneuver and get up a little bit, but for the most part, the players they wanted fell in their laps. Did you ever see that before?
There's only a few times that kind of come to mind. I mean, ironically, the last time they drafted a guard in the first round, Steve Hutchinson fell to them at 17, and they weren't looking for it, and they certainly didn't expect him to be there, and that turned out pretty well. I think the 2010 draft, they didn't necessarily expect Earl Thomas to be there at 14. He was. Then you get Golden Tate, and then you get Cam Chancellor, and there's the 5th round. There's a lot of things that kind of worked out for them in that draft. And then I think you'd have to mention the 2012 draft is another one that kind of reminds me of this one, in that you get the quarterback in the 3rd round that you weren't sure was going to be there, and you get some other really talented players along the way. So you have to be lucky you have to be lucky. You have to have your needs match up with the players that are available. You have to have other teams maybe see them a little bit differently. A lot of things have to go your way. And as much as I think everyone should be excited about the way this draft fell, the proof's going to be in how these guys play, and no one can be sure how that's going to look for at least, another few months.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. You bring up luck. And I mean, John Schneider and Pete Carroll got a lot of credit for, the 2010 draft class, their first year together, 2012 draft class. They had some really good ones when they were building up those Super Bowl teams. They also got a lot of criticism for, the drafts, maybe, I don't know, year 2015 to 2020, and Pete's out the door maybe a little bit later than that. How can you, properly evaluate a front office in the draft process and evaluation process when sometimes it's just up to luck?
Yeah, it's funny, people will say, hey, like the 49ers, they got Brock Purdy with the last pick in the draft. They're amazing. The Rams got Puka Nacua in the 5th round. They're awesome. If these teams knew that they were going to be that good and they waited until then to get them, they're actually really bad at their jobs. So there is like kind of the public narrative, and really end of the day, the way people get evaluated is an outcome, is the results. So no matter where you get them, it matters how these players end up performing. And that's the ultimate arbiter of how you are as a talent evaluator. And I think an underrated part of that process is the marriage with coaching. If you're drafting players that don't fit what the coaches want, and this happens more than people realize, where they're not in alignment, and then you got coaches who kind of refuse to play a player that they didn't want to get drafted, and that guy ends up looking like a bust, but it might be because the coaches didn't really align with it. So in this case, John Schneider, Mike Macdonald, it's very clear how much alignment there is. These guys are going to get their chances. And the other cool thing, guys, is because they've had now, I think, a series of good drafts, basically from 2022 on, these guys aren't going to walk in, for the most part, other than maybe Grey Zabel, and be expected to be starters. They're going to be expected to compete, to get snaps, but you just added 11 guys that may just make you that much more talented and can grow and develop at their own pace.
Brian, I wanted to ask, what's next? I mean, you at a point where the Seahawks have become like famous for the undrafted free agents. But what's next in the process?
Yeah, well, a good question there. The Seahawks just announced that they've waived 4 players, including Jaron Hall, the 4th-string quarterback, Michael Nowitzki, the center. So a couple guys that are no longer on the roster to make room for more undrafted free agents to be signed. And they've got some pretty interesting names on that list, including a guy like Jared Ivey, who's an edge player that a lot of people expected to be drafted. He ended up not being drafted. And then, other guys, a guy that I'm kind of curious about, has not been signed, but he's a training camp invite. They didn't go for a nose tackle in this draft class, and they really need one. And so they're inviting Thor Griffith. Yes, his name is Thor Griffith, 320-pound nose tackle who, I'm going to be watching to see if they can find a guy that can be a true A-gap player for them on that defensive line. And that's going to be a big part. So that'll be part of rookie minicamp, and we'll see if any of those invites turn into actual signed players.
Well, yeah, and I wanted to ask you about the interior defensive line, because I saw you mentioned there was a big need for him. It was a draft that was very deep at that position. They didn't end up getting any of the guys in that position. What does the depth look like at that spot? Does it put more pressure on maybe a Byron Murphy to step into a bigger role than maybe he would have been asked in year 2 if they'd been able to get a guy at that spot?
Yeah, I think, they do get Riley Mills from Notre Dame, and he's not a nose tackle, but he will be able to help in providing some depth. You don't know when he'll be back this year. He's recovering from an injury, but he's a guy that, would have been probably a 3rd-round pick, and talking to the folks that I know that follow the draft closely, if he had been healthy. And really, what they're missing is the nose tackle. And so they had Jonathan Hankins last year. I think they would have hoped, and I asked Mike Macdonald about this after the draft, that was a position that didn't quite fall to them in the right way. They wanted to find somebody, it didn't quite work out. And so now, maybe they do go back and add a veteran like Jonathan Hankins to the mix. They obviously have familiarity. they have Quentin Bohanna and Brandon Peely on there that could compete for some snaps, but that's a position you don't want Byron Murphy to be the only guy that you're going to play at nose tackle. And I think, you bring Jaron Reed back, who excelled in this defense. Leonard Williams was, playing like a defensive player of the year level candidate the last few games of the season. The challenge for Mike Macdonald is going to be to get Byron Murphy into a position to really realize all of his talents. Last year, they took advantage of the fact that he can play nose tackle, and he's a very strong guy in the middle of a line, but I don't think they're getting the most out of the talent that he has. And so they know that this is a chance for him to kind of step forward. A guy to watch that I think has, maybe has been put on notice is Mike Morris. He was a draft pick a couple years ago, and they ended up trading for Roy Robertson Harris to kind of take his snaps because he just wasn't playing strong enough at the point of attack. Let's see if another offseason, a healthy offseason for him, can turn around, his career and get him to be a bigger contributor.
And really quick, I know you have to run. We're getting to the end of this segment. Last two questions really quick. Sure. NFL.com gave every team in the division a B+ or better for their draft. Were you keeping up with the other teams in the division? Do you have any insight into how they made out in the draft as well?
Yeah, the 49ers are an interesting one because I wouldn't say they're the inverse of the Seahawks, but they went to the well where the Seahawks did not on the defensive line. So Mikael Williams, their edge, young, 20-year-old player, once was considered maybe the candidate for the number 1 overall pick before the last college football season started. And, he's stronger against defending the run than he is as a pass rusher right now. And then they went twice to interior defensive linemen with Alfred Collins and CJ West. Both of those guys excel as run stuffers. And it's interesting because the 49ers last year, their defensive line was all built around speed and pass rush, and they were just mashed on the run. So they've kind of realized that was not the right way to go, and they're kind of trying to rebuild. They also drafted a linebacker, Nick Martin, who I think some people thought was a little bit of a reach, but always got to be careful. When the 49ers draft a linebacker, they've had a really good eye for the Drake Greenlaws and the Aziz Al-Shires and obviously the Fred Warners. So we'll see how that turns out. The Rams, I thought a lot of praise for trading out of the first round, but they basically traded a first round this year for a first round next year. We'll see how that turns out. I do like Terrence Ferguson, the tight end they added. He's kind of a better version of Colby Parkinson, who they signed, and Seahawks fans know. And then the Cardinals, I think got some really good value with Walter Nolan and at the defensive lineman, and then Will Johnson, the cornerback. Will Johnson at some point was considered a top 10 pick from Michigan, but had some medical concerns. And if it turns out that those concerns are not well founded, the Cardinals got a very good player in the second round. So I think all the teams did relatively well. The Rams may be the least of those teams. And that's kind of good news for Seahawks fans, given that the Rams snuck out the division title last year.
And finally, to end with this, let's go big picture. Just, get the microscope out of the way on the draft. Everything, full offseason. I mean, it's been one of the most eventful off seasons maybe in team history, if not the most.
It's not done yet.
And it's not done. You move on from Geno, you move on from DK, and no matter, and you get Sam Darnold, no matter at the time how you felt about those moves, you always had to take into part of the equation was all the draft capital that they had and added through those moves. Now that the dust has sort of settled, I know we still have more time to go in this offseason, but now that the draft's out of the way, do you feel like this team is better situated now with these draft picks and with the new pieces than they were with Geno Smith, DK Metcalf, and that crew before they pivoted this offseason?
Wow, that's a really tough question to answer without having seen these guys on the field, So with that major caveat, I'll just say I think that the team is better set up to become the team Mike Macdonald wants it to be than it was before. I think that's not just in the sense of the players that align with the philosophy, but also a locker room that is not 1 foot in the Pete Carroll era and 1 foot in the Mike Macdonald era. This is all feet, all arms, whole body in the Mike Macdonald era. And I think you also have a quarterback that wants to be here. You have receivers in Cooper Kupp that want to be here and are going to show a work ethic that, is going to set a tone. And you added guys that are also, I mean, Nick Eamon-Wari is a huge Seahawks fan. Byron Murphy last year, he grew up being a huge Seahawks fan. These guys are excited to be Seahawks, and I think you can turn that into something bigger than, the sum of the parts. So, yeah, I think it's a really well-fashioned roster. I think they made the best of what they could do with that situation, knowing that both DK Metcalf and Geno Smith kind of were maybe not going to be too excited to come back. And now you got to take all of this clay that you've added to the table and mold it into something, hopefully that looks a little bit like a Lombardi trophy at some point.
Absolutely. That could be pretty cool if they turn that into a Lombardi. Brian Nemhauser, thank you so much. Really quick, with everything that you're doing on the Hawk Blocker website, social media and everything, where's the best place for people to find all your work, and what do you have going on right now?
Yeah, thanks. Basically, anywhere you get your content, if you just look for Hawk Blogger, you'll find me. YouTube is where, we're growing. Instagram, TikTok, and then obviously hawkblogger.com is always available. So, we've had literally millions of people tuning in over the draft weekend, which is super humbling, and we're really grateful for all that. It's been a ton of fun. So looking forward to a lot more great stuff to talk about, and it was really fun to come on and hang out with you guys.
Well, on top of Seahawks, I know you're doing great work charitably as well through your company as well. So we love to see that. Love your content. Thank you so much, Brian, for coming on. He is Brian Nemhauser, Hawk Blogger, here on the On the Sidelines podcast. Brian, thanks so much.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Yeah, thanks again to Brian Nemhauser, Hawk Blogger. Learned a lot talking to him. Always, that was his first time on. I hope it's not the last. Would love to pick his brain more about the Seahawks. Learn a whole lot. He knows what he's talking about. Let's pivot. Not too much. We're still talking draft, but let's go top 5, dead or alive.
Uh-oh.
Dante Jackson.
Hey, it's time. It's time, Ethan. It's what we've all been waiting for with bated breath. Hey, it's time for top 5, dead or alive. And this week, I'm going to go with the best Seahawks draft picks.
Okay.
And I kind of went with value. It's some obvious. You got Cortez Kennedy. You have Earl Thomas. Those are high picks that were expected to be studs. I kind of went somewhat with value here. So I'm going to go with Seahawks best draft picks, top 5, dead or alive. Here we go. I wrote them down. We're going to start with honorable mention. Darrell Jackson, a wide receiver.
D-Jack.
Yes,
D-Jack.
D-Jack.
Fellow
D-Jack.
D-Jack.
Third round in the year 2000. Now, I actually think he's one of the more underrated Seahawks in Seahawk history.
Yeah.
Darrell Jackson was a great wide receiver for this squad, and he's honorable mention. Let's move on. Chris Carson. Now, his career was short-lived with the Seahawks, but they were great years. When you look back, Chris Carson was a great pick. He was picked in the 7th round, Ethan.
Crazy.
The 7th round in 2017, which wasn't the best draft. Trust me, 2017 was a bad draft. But Chris Carson was one of the best Seahawks draft picks in 2017. That's my honorable mention. We're going to start with 5. Top 5, dead or alive. Here we go. 5, Bobby Wagner. Okay? Now, people, Hall of Famer, great Ring of Honor one day. Bobby Wagner, one of the best linebackers still in the game. I think he was All-Pro last year, and probably, his 30th year in the league?
Yeah.
2012, second rounder, Bobby Wagner at 5. All right, we're going to move on to 4. Cam Chancellor. Now, why do I got Cam ahead of Bobby? Cam was picked in the 5th round of 2010. Now, we all know Bam Bam Cam was the attitude of the LOB. He laid that wood down. You came across that middle. Good luck. Cam Chancellor. All right. 3, Michael Sinclair. Now, a lot of people might not know that name, but Michael Sinclair was a great Seahawk. Edge rusher, was one of the best Seahawks ever. He's also on that all underrated team. He was in 1991. He was a 6th rounder, Ethan. Michael Sinclair. All right, we're going to go to 2. Richard Sherman, the attitude, the mouthpiece of the LOB. He was that guy. And you better not throw on his side of the field. He shut down the whole side of the field. Why you mad, bro? Richard Sherman, come on. Top 5 dead or alive, he's at 2. He was picked in the 5th round in 2011. Could you believe it?
Crazy.
The 5th round, Richard Sherman, a future Hall of Famer for sure, and he'll be in the Ring of Honor one day also. But let's go to number 1. And we talked about the 3rd round being a sweet spot for the Seahawks quarterback. And I have to go with arguably one of the best players in Seahawks history, whether you like it or not, and that is Dangerous. Russell Wilson. Let's give him his flowers. One of the greatest Seahawks, 2012. He was picked in the 3rd round, and hopefully we have the same luck with Jalen Milroe. But Russell Wilson, Dangerous, is number 1, top 5, dead or alive, best Seahawks draft picks. Let's go. What do you think about the list, Ethan?
I love the list. You know, it's funny. You talked about in the first segment how you loved how the Seahawks didn't get too cute. They didn't zag when the rest of the league is zigging.
Right.
This list, Cam Chancellor was a 5th-round pick for a reason.
Yes.
They saw something in him and took a chance on him, saw value where there wasn't any, where the rest of the league didn't find any. Richard Sherman, same thing. Bigger cornerback. They take him in the 5th round because they think they can turn him into something. They turned 2 of those guys into the foundation
he was a wide receiver in college.
Yep. They turned those 2 guys into the foundation of what I think is the best defense of all time. And Russell Wilson, I mean, he wasn't even 6 foot. And I mean, you know, I agree with you. Love him or hate him, he's one of the best Seahawks of all time. And did they win that Super Bowl because of Russell Wilson? No, they won it because of the defense. But do they win it without Russell Wilson? I don't think so at all.
And Russell is a trailblazer.
Yes.
I mean, let's call it what it is, because now you have quarterbacks like a Kyler Murray. This year alone, Dylan Gabriel. You have the shorter in stature type quarterbacks that's been drafted.
Jalen Hurts?
I mean, Jalen Hurts, he's 6 foot.
Okay.
But you do have, he did open the door for that. That's Russell Wilson. I'm going to give him credit for that. He's a trailblazer, and he's one of the best Seahawks ever. Give him his flowers. Let Russ cook.
Broncos Nation. Let's rock. Yeah, you know, speaking of Russ, I do hope at some point he burned some bridges here. And when he retires, if he retired tomorrow, I don't know if he's getting into the Ring of Honor with his relationship with the team and the fan base.
It's not even a choice of the fan base or the team. He's
I don't know.
He's
certified. It's up to the
He's certified.
He deserves it. He deserves it. And I mean, the memories are incredible. But I mean, you got to be in a good standing with the team for them to just honor you with the greatest honor they can bestow onto one of their players. So and this is all speculation.
No, he will be.
I hope so.
I don't think it's anything the team or anybody else can say.
Do you know for certain that if Russ came back as a player and played at CenturyLink tomorrow, does he get cheered or does he get booed?
He gets cheered. It's been enough years.
I don't think he does.
It's been enough years.
I don't know what I would do, but I know for certain that it is not 100% cheers in that.
Is it 100% for anybody? Russell Wilson.
It's 50-50.
Russell Wilson. I don't know. I mean, you talk about memory. I think we have a short memory. Yes, he left. I mean, unceremoniously. Yes, but he gave us 10 years of exciting football.
Sure.
Made it to 2 Super Bowls. He actually won 1. I mean, you give him credit for that. You give Russ his flowers. He was dangerous. Let's not forget what this guy did for this franchise. He made them legitimate. He helped make them legitimate. Yes, it was the defense. Yes, it was LOB. But Russ, I mean, those exciting runs, those throws, those scrambles, I remember those. It's nothing anybody can say or do to keep that man out the Ring of Honor, if you ask me. He is solidified. He is there.
It's going to be interesting. You know, I know teams will hold a grudge. And, you know, so I don't know.
It sounds like you have a grudge.
No, I mean, no.
You put him in?
What?
Into the Ring of Honor.
Yeah, but the relationship has to be. You can't have a player come in for their Ring of Honor ceremony and then get booed by the fan base.
I don't.
You know what I mean? Like
I don't think he'd get booed. I don't think he gets booed.
Tomorrow, I think it would be 50-50.
You can't have.
I think it would be 50-50.
You can't have a more passionate Seahawks fan than myself, and I'm over it. It's been enough years past. The draft picks have been picked. The trades have evened out. Russ has moved on 2-3 times so far.
Yeah.
He can come back, and I will welcome him with open arms because guess what? He's one of the best players, top 5, dead or alive, in the Seahawks franchise, man.
I love your, to get back to, I love your rank. Speaking of Cam Chancellor,
Yes.
I mentioned I had my girlfriend sit down and watch Jalen Milroe highlights. I was telling her about the draft, and I was like, yeah, they got this safety, Nicky Minwari, and he's just like Cam Chancellor. And she goes, who? And I'm like, sit down right now. We're watching Cam Chancellor.
I can see your girlfriend now with a notepad. You got her taking notes.
She did not like the violence of Cam Chancellor.
No.
She was very concerned for Vernon Davis's
I
well-being.
was just about to say, the first thing you showed her was that Vernon Davis.
Is that guy okay?
And you know they flagged him for that. I'm still mad about that.
Yeah.
Clean hit.
Only change that I would put, and I know that you,
Yes.
I know that you put the pick and the value of the pick
Yes.
into it. Walter Jones, I don't think can be left outside of that top 5. The greatest Walter Jones, I think he was the 6th overall pick. So yeah, first rounder, but man, I mean, Hall of Famer, best left tackle of all time, drafted by the Seahawks,
Right.
played his whole career with Seattle. That's I would have if I had to amend it, I would throw him in there.
He would pick 6. He was expected to do that.
I mean,
man.
they had pick 3 in that same draft.
Right.
They drafted some corner who oh man, I should let's see. Do I still have the Seattle
I'm
Times?
just saying he was expected to do that.
Sure.
And I kind of left out those high first
mean,
rounders on my top
Yeah.
5 simply because they're kind of expected and projected. Now, you don't project somebody to be Hall of Fame and the best ever.
That's what I'm
so
saying.
you have a point
That's
there.
what I'm saying.
But I don't even really, I mean, if I'm going Mount Rushmore of the Seahawks in order, I mean, I put Steve Largent first.
Yeah.
So, he's not even number 1 on my list as far as my Mount Rushmore. He's on there.
I would
but
make the argument that Walter Jones is above Steve Largent.
Yes.
I mean, Walter Jones
Yes.
was instrumental to that 2005 Super Bowl appearance,
Yes.
the first of all time. Sean Alexander won a damn MVP.
Yes.
I mean, behind
the
that
only
offensive
Seahawk
line.
to ever win an
Yeah.
MVP.
As a running back.
Yes.
As a running back.
Yes.
That's hard to do. So
I mean, I definitely respect what Walter did. I think he's one of the greatest Seahawks. But this list right here, this is my list, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah.
And it's all about value. And getting Russell Wilson in the 3rd round, he brought the championship to Seattle, and he went to another one. He's the top pick on my top 5 dead or alive Seahawks draft picks.
I love it.
Stick to it.
I love it. Let's move on. Man, the Seattle Mariners are
Yes.
playing some good baseball right
And
now.
Fuego.
we sit here. What day is it? We sit here on April 29th talking about a first place Mariners baseball team. D-Jack, after those first 2 weeks, did you?
Man.
If I told
No.
you,
No, I would just cut you off right there. I was about to go into my yearly depression and I even said it. Can we say this is the same old Mariners? No.
Yeah.
These are not your same old Mariners. They've won 6 straight, Ethan, 6 straight series, and each in like the last 3 or 4.
last 4.
4, they've lost the first game.
Yeah.
So they've bounced back, and they're getting contributions from everyone, and except for their star, which is Julio. And once he heats up, the sky's the limit for this team. I love what the Mariners are doing right now. Logan Gilbert, get better, please. But he steps out goes a Logan, in comes a Logan. And his first start, he's lights out. So every button that Dan Wilson, and I'm going to give Dan Wilson credit, every button that Dan Wilson is pushing right now is working. Polanco is hitting. Cal, what more can you say?
Right.
He's a star, just like I love. Go Mariners.
Yeah. And the Mariners actually making some history recently. So Dylan Moore won American League Player of the Week last week. Jorge Polanco follows it up this week by winning AL Player of the Week. He had like 471 this week. I mean, absolutely crazy. I think
Who would have thunk it?
I think it was Tim Booth with the Seattle Times had this stat through 21 games. Polanco had 20 total bases last year. He had 22 total bases last week alone.
Right.
So Jorge Polanco's doing incredible stuff. The history, it's the first time the Mariners have had back-to-back American League Players of the Week since 1998 with some guys named Alex Rodriguez and Ken Griffey Jr.
Oh, wow.
So Jorge Polanco and Dylan Moore are basically Alex Rodriguez and Ken Griffey Jr.
Slow down, cousin. Slow down. Slow down.
The craziest part, you mentioned Julio Rodriguez, is this offense is, I mean, it's been a month. Okay.
Yes.
Pump the brakes, Ethan.
Yes.
I was about to say they're elite. I'm not going to say that yet.
No, they have been. Let's call it like
yeah,
you
okay.
said.
They have been elite.
Right now.
Yes.
Let's talk about the right now.
Yes. So let me go back and find where they rank in runs on April 29th. They are 8th in the entire league in runs scored. This team, this offense, 2nd in WRC plus in the entire. This is the entire league. 4th in WAR offensively. 1st in walk rate. 3rd in home runs. 5th in OPS. 3rd in stolen bases. This offense is doing so many things right.
This team doesn't get the benefit of the doubt. Over the years, they have us with PTSD. I mean, we were up 10 games last year, and they let Houston walk them down.
Yep.
So, I mean, you don't get the benefit of the doubt. You have to get greedy, stay aggressive, keep hitting the ball. And the pitching is not even being dominant like we expected it to. And, you know, so this team is not even clicking on all cylinders like you expect them to. So once you get, you know, Logan Gilbert comes back and George Kirby comes back and you have your full squad, I would love to see what this team can do.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I don't think this is a top 10 offense in the league. If they can settle somewhere, you know, in that league average category, and then you get Logan Gilbert back, you get George Kirby back, Matt Brash in the back end of the bullpen. Man, with Gregory Santos going down, you know, he first got sent down to AAA. He was really struggling, and now he's getting knee surgery. Right. Man, how bad do you need Matt Brash back in the back end of that bullpen? Andres Munoz is the best reliever in baseball right now.
It's not even a question.
I mean,
is there a question?
No, there is no question. Like, I mean, he leads all relievers in WAR. He's up there with Aaron Judge in WAR in the entire league, regardless of player, as a reliever. So you've got. I mean, he's the one reason you've been able to hang on to all these 7-6 ball games and stuff that you're getting into right now. I expect
the best closer since Sasaki, I would say.
Yeah.
You have to go all
Paul
the way.
Sewald. Paul Sewald, man.
Yeah, Sewald was good.
Give me Sewald.
I mean, Sasaki had years as the closer.
Yeah, sure.
Sewald was, a flash in the pan, if you ask me.
He had like three good years,
okay,
man.
All right. I say Sasaki, you say Sewald.
Sure.
I would say Munoz definitely is the more consistent, best closer since Sasaki.
Munoz is better than Sewald, absolutely.
Munoz is the best closer in Mariner history already.
Wow.
Already.
That's a big statement.
Hands down.
Yeah, so I expect the Mariners to sort of settle in at that league average spot for the off. I mean, man,
why not though? Why do
that's
they
what
settle
I
in?
expect. No, I'm not saying they're as. This is me projecting. You know what I mean?
I get it, but I'm just saying this is baseball, and you have those kind of years where like that's the novelty of baseball. They say you're gonna see something that never happened almost every game, and so why can't Polanco stay hot? Why can't Dylan Moore stay hot? You know, and you bring in a Julio and he becomes the star like he's supposed to, and Cal keeps raking. I think they can keep this up. All I want them to do is not take it for granted and get greedy, not become complacent, and keep working hard and grinding. And I think this team, like I said, the sky's the limit.
Well, and yeah, you mentioned don't take your foot off the gas. They did with that 10-game lead in June last year.
Don't do it.
And things just went down the toilet. So, I mean, the good part is Jerry DiPoto is willing to make a move and be aggressive in the trade market. And, you're not paying guys a lot of money. You've got a lot of prospects to sell away to maybe get an impact back come July like they did last year.
Yes.
So there, if this offense can keep it up, if Jorge Polanco can keep hitting like this, I don't expect Dylan Moore to keep this up. He's a pretty streaky player. He's capable of runs like this, but I think it would be a little bit, audacious to think he's going to be like this the entire year. But Jorge Polanco has a track record of this.
Yes.
He can keep this up. If he can do that, JP can be a solid contributor, and Julio can start heating up, man. I mean,
and
the offense was the question mark, and you have it.
And you talked about DiPoto maybe making a move. This is a paid advertisement. This start right here, this is a paid advertisement to the other free agents and the players at the trading deadline. Because let's be honest, you didn't want to come to Seattle. That's where your office died. Your bat died. I mean, you talk about the marine layer, and people just don't want to come here, players. But if they see that momentum and the Mariners keep winning with the pitching staff, you might be able to attract a player or two. You might be able to get a bat or two at the deadline if that's what you need. But I'm riding with my boys that we have right now, and I think they can do it.
Yeah, well, looking ahead really quick to the schedule, they got a 2-game set with the LA Angels. It's three straight divisional opponents these next 3 series. So this is going to be big to build some cushion. They got a 1-game lead in the division right now. You want to build some cushion. 2 at home against the Angels. You got Bryce Miller and Emerson Hancock going in those 2 games. An old friend Tyler Anderson is going to be pitching for the Angels in that 2nd game. We don't see Yusei Kikuchi, which is disappointing. That would have been fun to see 2 former Mariners. Bryce Miller, we're gonna want to see a bounce back start. He hasn't been too good earlier in this year. Then you go to Texas. Brian Wu, Luis Castillo, and Logan Evans in Texas, in Arlington, and then you got 3 against the Athletics.
Okay.
The city ambiguous Athletics.
And I expect the Mariners to win each one of those series.
Okay, I thought you were going to say every single game. Every single game.
You know what? It's all about timing and patience right now with baseball. I've learned. You taught.
I see you holding your lip a little bit.
You taught me. You taught me. I have to be patient. It's not all right. I'm not going to expect them to win every game, but I can expect them to win every series.
Absolutely.
You can win every series, Mariners, and that's what I expect. So definitely, I'm being patient. I turned into a baseball guy. Ethan got me.
Let's go.
He learned me up. He taught me up. So hey, look, you say be patient. All right, I'm being patient. I still expect you to win every series and get greedy, man.
Absolutely, yeah. 6 straight
Put
series
it on a
win.
T-shirt. Get greedy.
Get greedy.
Yeah.
With the sideline pass written on it. Yeah, let's go.
Hey.
All right. Yeah. So keep an eye on those Mariners. They're playing well. Dante, let's switch gears. What's trending right now?
All right.
What's trending in the world of sports?
I got it down here. Let me go ahead and tell you about what's trending. What's trending? The NFL draft is all about the draft, you guys. And as far as the draft, what is everybody talking about? Shedeur Sanders. He slipped to the 5th round. Some people are calling it the greatest slippage or slide. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And draft history. I don't know if I would go that far.
The greatest, the worst?
I mean, the greatest, worst, whatever.
I don't think Shedeur would call it the greatest.
But one of the things, and the Seahawks put this on their website, and I look forward to it, is the phone calls. When they call the draftees, and then you get to see their emotions, and they first learn they're a Seahawk or they on whatever team drafted them. That's one of the moments, man. I mean, I even tear up on some of those.
Absolutely.
You get to see a player's dream realized after life's work. I mean, you're talking about players that start when they're 4 years old, and finally they get to reach the pinnacle of their profession. So the phone calls are very important. And, Jax Ulbrich is a name. He's the son of Jeff Ulbrich, defensive coordinator at Atlanta Falcons. He took it upon himself to prank call Shedeur Sanders and fake the call like he was from the New Orleans
on night
Saints.
1, right? It was on night 1.
Told him, hey, you're gonna have to wait a little longer. It was brutal. It's savage. Now
it's cruel,
man. Us cruel. Older folks gonna say, hey, that's the TikTok generation right there. They trying to get laughs at the expense. And what was supposed to be a great moment or a special moment, they went ahead and dumped on it. So that's what's trending. They talked about it. NFL is investigating. Now, supposedly, Jack Ulbrich got the number from his dad's iPad, which he left open. He wrote the number down, so his dad supposedly didn't know about it. What do you think? Should there be repercussions on the dad for leaving that type of information unlocked? Or
I mean,
what do you think should happen with that?
So this isn't the dad's fault. I mean, the kid is an idiot. I mean, college kids are going to do what college kids do, but I mean like you said, that's messing with somebody's dream. And love or hate Shedeur Sanders, he's still a human being at the end of the day, and he's still waiting for his dream to be realized. So, did I, with all of the bragging and confidence being exuded from Colorado and Shedeur and all the cameras and all that stuff, did I feel bad for him that he slid? No, not at all, actually. Right. I wasn't cheering for it, but I didn't feel bad for him. Did I feel bad about the prank call? Yeah, that wasn't cool. And, yeah, it was a phone that he'd gotten just for the NFL draft. So, and I mean, man, I felt bad, but he did it to himself with all the cameras and all the stuff. And, so, yeah, it's tough, man. I don't want to victim blame. He made himself a target with how much he's putting himself out there and all that stuff.
But did he put himself out there? I mean, he's Deion's son. one of the greatest players of all time. He's going to have that spotlight on him regardless.
I mean, they made it a lot bigger than it needed to be. He had like 3 camera crews at his crib waiting for him to get drafted.
Right.
The camera crews didn't ask to be there. Oh, we want to like document. No, like they had him come there.
You
know
sure
what I
they
mean?
had him come there? Or was it at the NFL? Because if you go to NFL.com right now, who's going to be on the front page of NFL.com?
I'm sure.
Shedeur Sanders.
I'm sure it was a team effort between the NFL wanting to do something with Shedeur and Shedeur, but absolutely, you know, like
and they reaped the rewards, some of the highest ratings of the second and third day,
sure,
because he didn't get drafted. So everybody is reaping the rewards. I have no problem with Shedeur Sanders, and you know, I just don't like the fact that. What do you think about the slide? Because I thought it was personal. You think it was personal?
I don't think he's ready. I mean, you know, I'm not a draft evaluator. What it seems like is he's not ready to be a starting quarterback day one. Right. And obviously, you know, the NFL teams agree because they wouldn't have let him slide if he wasn't. If he's going to be the backup, say the Seahawks had taken him instead of Jalen Milroe in the 4th or 5th round, he's going to sit behind Sam Darnold.
Yes.
You know, once Sam Darnold, week 3, he has a, you know, 1 touchdown, 4 interception game, including an interception in a 2-minute drill to try to tie the game. You know who's going to get asked about it in his next press conference? Deion Sanders. And you know what he's going to say? Something to the effect of, my son wouldn't have done that. My son would have been played better than that. Boom, headline, TMZ, all this stuff. It's just unnecessary publicity for the situation that he's in, how outspoken Deion Sanders is. I sort of see it as like a Lamar Ball situation.
Right.
You know how Lamar was a big distraction for Lonzo and his sons.
Yes.
And, you know, it's like Lonzo or Lamar, you can be like, okay, you know, you average 3 points a game in college, like whatever. We're not going to, you're loud, but we can't take your opinion seriously. Deion went there and did it. Like, his voice carries a lot of weight.
Yes.
And so, and he's the head coach of Colorado. Like, he's a high-profile guy in the spotlight right now. You go and draft Shedeur Sanders to be your backup, you're playing with fire. And, you know.
So that means you're scared.
You're
scared.
If you don't think, he has to be a good enough prospect for you to inherit that risk.
Yes.
There is risk there whether you're scared of it or not.
Now,
you know?
the thing about it is every draft expert is wrong. Because every draft expert had Shedeur ranked either 1 or 2 as the best quarterback and a top 10 prospect.
Right.
To a man. I mean, you name them, they had him ranked that high. So where's the disconnect between the NFL teams and the experts? Because going from a top 10 pick to sliding all the way to the 5th round with no, like, he didn't break the law. He didn't hurt anyone.
That's a great point.
It was no scandal. Something smells here, you know. And I wanted to say this, Ethan. I had a little saying, like, you know, they scared of the swag, it seems. They scared of the swag, right? I said when they can't bundle you, they try to humble you.
Sure.
All right? And let me explain that. When they can't bundle you, when they can't put you in a box, when they can't define you, when they can't wrangle you and make you conform, which was Shedeur. He was brash. Some say he was cocky.
Yeah.
He had that confidence of his dad, you know, so they couldn't bundle him, so they tried to humble him. You know, he fell all the way to the 5th round. I think it's unacceptable. It's something fishy here. The NFL needs to investigate that. That's what they need to investigate, not the phone call.
Yeah, that's a good point. I just think it's the league telling us without telling us that, you know, the circumstances around him with his dad and, you know, how much sway he has, it's just not worth the headache.
Yes.
It's not worth the PR nightmare of, you know, just getting all these questions. Like, he's going to be the backup quarterback with all this spotlight on him. Like, you know.
Tim Tebow.
Yeah.
Tim Tebow.
Like, I just don't, you know, like, what if, like, you know, Drew Lock, like, what if he had all this spotlight? You don't want that. You want the starting quarterback to have it be his team and be able to lead the entire team.
Yes.
And, you know, the word around is that his in-person interviews did not go well.
Yes.
And he came off as very brash and cocky and, you know, not, I don't know, willing to take feedback and stuff like that. Entitled.
Yes.
And, you know, I mean, I think it's not like he went undrafted and nobody wanted him.
Yes.
Like the Browns ended up, they said they got good value for him in the 5th round. And I agree. If he doesn't do anything, it doesn't matter. Like with Jalen Milroe. And that was two rounds ahead of where Shedeur went.
Yes.
If Shedeur doesn't do anything, he's a career backup, whatever, it doesn't matter for the Browns, you know? So they wasted a 5th-round pick on him, whatever.
Yes,
Which
yes.
they traded up with the Seahawks, by the way, which I think is pretty cool to get that pick.
And they picked Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd
Yeah.
round. You signed Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett, and you still have Deshaun Watson on a contract. You have 5 quarterbacks under contract.
And you know what? That's a really good point that you made. Like, he didn't kill anybody. He didn't break the law. I mean, you've got Deshaun Watson on your team.
Right.
And there are much worse human beings that get drafted far ahead of where Shedeur said. So I will say that's a really good point. Shedeur didn't break the law or nothing. So, you know,
Yes.
it's not like he deserved that just for being brash and cocky.
Right. And the thing about it is, like, I think it was more teams, running scared from Deion, but not in a sense where they felt like he would say something or call them out in the press. They're scared of their jobs, because if you don't do right by Shedeur and you don't be successful with Shedeur, you're out that next season. And guess who's coming from Colorado? Deion.
Yeah.
So you had a bunch of GMs and coaches looking out for their jobs, and rightfully so. I mean, I want my job. I love my job. You like your job?
I like
so
it, yeah.
I get it, but you can't play scared. You can't run an organization from a position of fear, and that's what I think happened here.
I feel like we can wrap up. We've sort of beat the dead horse on this one, but I feel like if he was a good enough quarterback prospect, Lonzo Ball was still the 2nd pick in the draft, despite all the distractions. So it's like, I feel like if the talent had been to a certain level, teams would not have let him fall.
Yes.
And I think that says something about the combination of maybe he's better than a 5th-round talent, but the outside stuff, the attitude, it knocks him down a little bit. They're evaluating not just the player, but also the person as well.
I agree.
So
I agree.
Anyway,
Let's
I think
leave it right there.
yeah, it's good enough. We don't need to talk too much more about a 5th-round pick. So
Well, NFL just said, will he get a start this year? They're riding it till the wheels fall off.
Hey, whatever gets the engagement.
He's must-see TV right now.
Yeah. Anyway, that's it for the On the Sidelines podcast.
Yes.
Thank you to Brian Nemhauser, Hawkwalker, for coming on to us. Thank you to engineer Mike Hammer for making it happen. He's been incredible with this whole setup that we got. So thank you for Brian, Mike, for D-Jack. I'm Ethan McReynolds. We'll see you next time on the Sidelines.
Let's
go!
On the Sidelines is available wherever you get your podcast.